the other day, Madame Hillary Clinton, how much and how well you are going to implement the Charter, this little green book. I told her it is a living document. We have to put flesh and blood into it. The spirit is already there. And I refer to the American experience by saying that the phrase that insists that all men are created equal has been in the U.S. Constitution, in the U.S. Declaration of Independence since the beginning of that republic. But it took over 200 years for Mr. Obama to complete that journey of freedom, that journey to fulfill the wisdom and the principle of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, that all men indeed are created equal and are equal to assume any office. I told her that in the beginning it was not even meant to include every colors. It was not meant to include women. So it was a long journey, the same as this document. And I told her that don't ever underestimate the power of the words. The power of the words contained in this document. She said, no, I have never underestimated the power of the word. She should know. She has been a politician. Now she is the chief diplomat of the United States of America. She said she has never underestimated the power of the word. And I think that's the spirit that we all ASEAN, 570 of us, million, should take the document as a living document that needs to be implemented and needs contribution, needs participation, needs the ownership of the people of ASEAN in order to make it work. Now, in the Charter, we are supposed to build our community by the year 2015 based on 3 pillars. First pillar is political and security, because we want to see this region stable and secure. Because we want to avoid open conflicts among us, because we want to avoid any uncontrolled tension that would undermine our economic progress and our cooperation in many, many other fields. So the first pillar is to ensure that we will have stability, we will have security, so that other cooperation can be continued. The second pillar is probably most concrete of all, and that is the pillar of economic community. Because we need to improve, we need to raise the living standards of our people. We need to raise the economic achievement of our people all across ASEAN. We need to integrate. We need to ensure that we are competitive. We need to be confident that we can compete with the world and coming out winning. And we need to make sure that the fruits of that development, of that competition, will be equally distributed to our people. Our development must be inclusive. Our development must be equitable. And we cannot compete, each and individual of us. Indonesia is 230 million. ASEAN minus Indonesia is 40% less in terms of population. ASEAN without Indonesia is 1/3 less in its combined GDP. But even the size of Indonesia, I think the leaders of Indonesia in the past and the current leadership realized that Indonesia needs a larger platform in order to engage with the world outside, in order to benefit from that engagement, in order to be ensured that that competition and engagement have a higher degree of success. We want to integrate our economies. We want to bring down barriers. We have brought down tariffs among us tremendously. Almost 100% already, only between 0 and 5% tariffs. And we hope to bring 100% down. Our problems now is not the tariff barriers. Our problems now are the non-tariff barriers. NTBs. And NTBs can come in many, many forms. NTBs can come in the form of quota. You can't import that much into my market. You can't import this particular product because it is in a wrong kind of package. You can import that into my market because it's different color. You can import that into my market because the size, the weight are different from what we have in this market. All sorts of non-tariff barriers. That also has to be streamlined. Customs procedures. It doesn't make sense to bring down all the tariff barriers, but our products are caught up at our borders. If they are perishable goods, they will be rotten by the time they got through the customs services procedures. So we are going through single window initiative. We are going through one unified procedure, same forms that you have to fill up at the borders to get through. The private sector is complaining that spare parts from Ho Chi Minh City across Cambodia into Laos, into Thailand, for assembly lines in Thailand would take 3 weeks rather than 2 days. That defeats the purpose of our integration. So we have to build our community on that pillar of economic cooperation, economic integration. The last one, which is what we are doing now, is extremely important. If we want to build an ASEAN as a people-oriented ASEAN, I would refer to Article 1, the purposes of this charter, Item 13, to promote a people-centered ASEAN in which all sectors of society of ASEAN are encouraged to participate in and benefit from the process of ASEAN integration and community building. Item 14, to promote an ASEAN identity through the fostering of greater awareness of the diverse culture and heritage of the region. There is a new space being opened up for the people of ASEAN. It has been complained for the last 40 years that ASEAN has been an organization, a forum only of the leaders, only of the diplomats, like myself. People ask me, will we succeed implementing our charter? I said, well, from now on, if we don't succeed, don't blame the leaders alone. If we together don't succeed and achieve our goal of building an ASEAN community by the year 2015, don't place the blame on the diplomats alone. Because the space has been opened up for the people, the socio-cultural pillar, community council, that would invite all sectors in the ASEAN landscape to contribute, to participate, to own the process. And that's why it is extremely important to make sure that 570 million people are aware that they own this organization, that they belong to this organization, that they can contribute to this organization, that they can appeal to the leaders and ask the question, why can't we implement the charter? Why can't we do what we have committed to do? Why are we lacking behind the other party, the other member? That's what I mean, the power of the words. Because it could be a new reference point for the people of ASEAN. It could be a new standard for the people of ASEAN. We want to measure up to what the Charter has given us through the sacred signatures of our leaders over a year ago in Singapore. So with these three pillars, I hope that all elements of ASEAN will have an opportunity to contribute and to participate and to own, and along the way adopting another identity. In addition to being Indonesian, 230 million people of Indonesia are also ASEAN. 64 million of the Thais are also ASEAN, like the Europeans have achieved in the past few years. I am a French, but I am also a European at the same time. I am a British, but I'm also a European at the same time. I'm a Swedish, I'm a Finn, but I'm also a European at the same time. Unless and until we can have that second identity in every one of our 570 million people, ASEAN will not be on a firmer ground going into the future. ASEAN has been accused of being a talk shop. A certain portion of the history of ASEAN, I was responsible as foreign minister, as chair of ASEAN. Now I'm back in the process as Secretary General of ASEAN. I can guarantee you that it is more than a talk shop. It aspires to achieve. And at the 14th summit in Cha'am, in Hua Hin, in Thailand, south of Bangkok, the leaders are going to gather in order to look into the progress of our community building. They will consider a new plan of action for ASEAN community building. They will adopt 2 more blueprints of community building, and that is the blueprint on political and security community, the blueprint on socio-cultural community. They will look into various issues, agreements, MOUs on economic integration. They want to make sure that we have mutual recognition on our professional training. They want to make sure that certain professions can move from Singapore to Thailand, from Thailand to Indonesia, from Indonesia to Vietnam, so that the space for our professionals will be expanded. That will be good for the future leaders, for the future professionals of ASEAN, but that also comes with a challenge. If you are not well trained, you will have to compete with 570 million people, no longer 230 in Indonesia. If you want to be best doctor, you have to compete with the rest of ASEAN. If you want to be the best engineer, you have to compete with the rest of ASEAN. It's no longer competing within the national boundaries. Well, if competition is good, if competition can bring quality, if competition can bring excellence, here we are. We want to open up ASEAN professions for competition among ASEAN people, so that along the way we can improve the standards of our professions, of our services. Opportunity and challenges coming together in the open space of ASEAN. They will be considering expanding their cooperation, their FTA, originally with India. Now India said they are not ready, so we'll have to wait on that one. Another 1.1 billion market, but they said they are not ready. Australia and New Zealand, yes, ASEAN will sign a trade agreement, free trade agreement with Australia and New Zealand. So it's more than a talk shop. It aspires to achieve, cannot achieve everything 100% at the same time, but it's incremental. It has a momentum, and the best of all, it's no longer driven by the leaders. It can be driven by the people at the grassroots of ASEAN. And that is a message for all of you in 8 centers around ASEAN this morning. It can be driven by all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Dr. Surin, for reminding us all of what ASEAN aspires to be, what we're going to do to ensure peace in the region, what we're going to do to achieve integration of its economies and its peoples. Now, the floor is open to the audience around the 8 different countries. And Dr. Surin, the people present are all representatives of the ASEAN people. They include academics, students, people from the media, and also government. So I'll open up the first session, and this session will include Cambodia, Indonesia, and the Lao PDR. Cambodia, are you there? Can you hear me? You have the first opportunity.
Yes, we hear you very well.
Very good.
Good morning.
Okay, yes.
Please present your question.
Yes, can you hear?
Yes.
Can you hear us? Okay. We have many, but we only gonna select just one. Unfortunately, Excellency, we appreciate your presentation very much. It's inspiring and it's also informative. We as a group, we discussed and we appraised the visions. We appraised the visions of the ASEAN, one vision, one identity, one community, and we read through the charters, and we have an observations. First, I would like to cite specifically on what you say, what is a good idea of ASEAN. Just briefly, you mentioned stability, security, fair and equity. And all of these are important for people-centered, empowering the peoples, enforcing, implementing the perhaps accountability of institutions. So the question here is just one small question. We noted in Article 23 to 26, it talks about dispute resolutions, but there is no mention or discussion on enforcement mechanisms. Therefore, we think that we need an enforcement mechanisms in order to materialize all the elements and the spirit that you mentioned. In that context, could you please address and elaborate the need for the ASEAN enforcement mechanism? This is very important. The enforcement mechanism of the Charter in relation to how ASEAN could enhance its role in dispute settlements. Also, could you please address the role of ASEAN on how it is dealing with the impact of the global financial crisis? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Cambodia, for those 2 tough questions. Now I shall go to Indonesia, And I'll take it straight to the floor. We have a member from the audience who wants to raise a question. So please, Wahyu.
Thank you. Dr. Surin, my name is Wahyu Diamika from Tempo Magazine. Thank you for the opportunity to ask one question. Actually, it's going to be two very brief questions. First, can we expect the launching of ASEAN first ever human rights body in the next upcoming summit? And second, if not, can you brief us about the latest progress toward the establishment of that human rights body? Thank you.
Thank you, Wahyu, for the short and concise question. And now I turn to the Lao PDR. Lao PDR, can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Surin, for your comprehensive statement. Question from Laos, it's with regard to the development gap between ASEAN nations. At the 4th ASEAN Informal Summit held in November 2000 in Singapore, the ASEAN leaders agreed to launch the Initiative for ASEAN Integration, or IAI, which gives direction to and sharpens the focus of collective efforts in ASEAN to narrow the development gap between ASEAN. Under your leadership, we would like to know what is the stand of this initiative and how would you push forward to close the development gap, particularly for CLMV countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I turn to Dr. Surin to give his answers.
A very, very good breakfast session. For Cambodia, the dispute settlement, the charter refers to the office of the chair of ASEAN and the Secretary General of ASEAN as ex officio responsible or to be instrumental in dispute settlement. I agree with you that we need to have a more precise and concise procedures in order to do that. But it is, as I said earlier, an evolutionary process. We need, this is for the first time that it is written in letters. So we need to find and feel our way along in order to make sure that whatever mechanisms that we can come up with will be effective and acceptable. Now, the way in which we dealt with problems and issues, I can give you the direct example that you might have in mind already, the issue between Thailand and Cambodia, the two kingdoms, happen to be two Buddhist kingdoms with dispute over a ruin of a Hindu temple. And the foreign ministers in Singapore dealt with the issue extremely critically and with full engagement of how to help, how to resolve. In the end, their wisdom had led them to decide that the two sides have their own bilateral mechanisms. Exhaust those bilateral mechanisms with the appeal that please be restrained. Please find a peaceful solution. Please have the profile, the image, and the integrity of ASEAN in mind while you are going through this difficult process of resolving the problems. Well, initially, there was some reservation about that approach because tension continued. But the foreign ministers decided that we are going to put our service, our good offices, and our role as mediator, as reconciliator on whole, but be comforted by the fact that we are ready whenever you need us. Please exhaust your bilateral mechanisms that you have in place. Well, it took both sides a few months, but right now both sides are coming down, are looking for and seeking for a peaceful and amicable solutions to the issue. All we can say for the two sides, Thailand and Cambodia, in the Buddhist language, Satu, meaning Amen. In the other half of ASEAN, meaning we approve of your efforts and we are grateful that both sides are climbing down from the cliff of confrontation down to the plane of consultation right now. So it's not only that particular issue between the two kingdoms. Many other couples in ASEAN are also having problems between each other. Some have decided to bypass ASEAN and go on to the World Court. Fine. Because ASEAN is not just an exclusive mechanism for the members. It's just one alternative. And I think we have to learn and we have to experience, we have to find our way along in order to come up with an acceptable and effective mechanism for us. But the Charter has provided for that. On the global financial crisis, for the first time since 1997, the first round of Asian financial crisis, a sense of community is emerging. In 97, each of us ran for separate cover. Thailand went one way, Indonesia went another way, Malaysia went another way, the Philippines went its own way. All of us came down together. You remember that. This time, there is a new herd instinct. That's the language of stock market. Herd instinct, usually negative, that is running away together because the board is all red. Everybody is losing, so I sell and I run. Run together. Run for your life. A herd instinct running away from danger. This time, there is a positive and constructive herd instinct. We are sticking together. We are holding hands. We are crossing arms. And not only 10 of us. The other 3 in the East are also saying a community is building. If you